today we are going to answer 3 questions that will help us look at historical figures, people throughout history, and biographies, and it will help us learn more information about them. And we're going to learn information about people through pictures, through images. Pictures can give us a lot of information. Often we just look at them for fun, right? They make us feel good. But we're going to learn how to gain information from a piece of art today called portraits by asking these 3 major questions. The first is, what is a portrait? The second is, where do we see them? And the third thing will be, what should our eyes notice when we look at portraits? Does that sound like a plan? Today, sometimes I'm going to talk and you'll listen, just like you're doing right now. Other times you're going to talk and I'm going to be listening. In fact, I'll be listening so closely that I will record some of your thoughts up here. I'll be writing them down. But I don't want you to stop talking when you see me writing your words down. I want you to keep going. There's going to be a very important question that you'll ask each other today. The question is, what else? Can you say it with me? What else? One more time. What else? When you think you've run out of ideas, you're going to ask that very important question, what else? And keep on going, because there's more than one idea we want to explore, right? All right, so let's get started. I want you to think in your own beautiful mind first before you talk. What is a portrait? What do you know about portraits so far? So don't raise your hand. When you think you have an idea, go ahead and cross your arms over your chest. What is a portrait? I'm going to give you a shoulder partner that you're going to get to talk to in just a moment. You two will be partners. 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 You two partners. You two partners. And you two partners. Okay? Go ahead and release your arms. By the time I count to 3, you will turn your body and face your partner. 1, 2, 3. Tell your partner everything you know about portraits and make sure you're listening for everything they know about portraits. When you think you ran out of ideas, what are you going to say? What else? Very nice. Go. 1 minute.
I think a portrait is a picture of something or someone that might have happened Just know what else.
Take about 10 more seconds. Keep going. What else? What else?
I've got another one. So it's just like you imagine words into your head and put it in
5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Go ahead and make me your focal point and go like this. Make sure I know I'm your focal point. Lovely. So I forgot to tell you, I'll give you a warning when it's almost time to stop talking, and it just sounds like this. 10 seconds, so you know you have 10 seconds left. And then I'll count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You actually don't have to stop talking until I get to 1. So it gives you some time to finish up your conversation. But you all knew that. You did it beautifully. And then you're sitting just like you are right now, ready to check out some of the ideas I collected, and maybe we can add a few more. So what is a portrait? I heard you all again and again saying it's a picture of a person. Some of you said it can be colorful. Some of you say it's framed. People in art, you said. You said it could be a baby. Someone said it could be a baby. It absolutely can. Some people say that it's a self-portrait. They've heard of this thing called the self-portrait. And then I heard others say that there are faces. We're going to learn even more about portraits. We're going to build on the background knowledge you already have. And in order to do that, I brought some portraits with me. In fact, I brought 35 portraits. So I will spread these portraits all around on this circle. And your job at first is going to be to look with your eyes and think with your brains what's the same and what's different. So eyes are looking, do it with me. Eyes are looking, brains are thinking. What's the same and what's different? You're going to want to touch. Your hands are going to want to touch, but you're not going to touch. Just eyes and brains, okay? Even your mouths are going to be silent for the first minute so that you can really think in your own mind. What are we thinking? What's the same and what's different? That's comparing and contrasting, right? So I'll put these images all around on the circle. Be careful of your feet and your hands. We don't want to touch at all. Flat on our bottoms. Brains are thinking, eyes are looking. What's the same and what's different? Some portraits are going to be really close to you. You're going to be able to see more details. Some will be farther away and you won't be able to see all of the details. But regardless of whether they're close or far away, I want you to take in every portrait. What's the same and what's different? Thinking in our own minds first, knowing that we will definitely have a chance to share with our friends. I always tell the kids that when I do this lesson with teachers, they always want to touch, they always want to talk, but I remind them too, you're doing a beautiful job. Eyes are looking, brains are thinking. What's the same and what's different? Look at all of these portraits. What's the same and what's different? By the time I count to 3, you will turn your body to face your partner. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead and turn and face your partner. What's the same and what's different?
One of them is like some have sports features. It's supposed to and they also have some sports like this.
Keep going. What else? What else? Keep on going.
It could be about something. It could be about people who say different colors. It can be about
Take 10 more seconds. What else? What else? 10 more seconds. What? Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Please make me your focal point. Make me your focal point. This is what I heard, and there were so many ideas. I was trying to listen to all different parts of the circle. I heard all different colors. I heard sports features. Some have sports features. They're the things, right? Different objects. So there are some that have different objects. Different shirts. We're talking about clothing, right? Clothing will tell us a lot about a person. Different clothing, different shirts, right? Some of you are mentioning different clothing. Can know a lot about this person based on his clothing, right? All right, places where they are. I heard somebody call that the setting, right? Where it takes place. They all have people. You all noticed that. And they all, some of you said they all have different stories. They all tell different stories, which I really loved. Some of you said there were different animals. And then I heard this. Some are realistic and some are fake. Does anyone know the word for fake when we're talking about art? It's realistic or it can be fiction. We're talking about books. Does anybody know the word abstract, right? So let's look at some examples here. Let's look at abstract, and then where is she? This woman here, her image hangs in the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. And her portrait is so big that it takes up almost the whole entire wall. And when you're in that room, it feels like she's there with you because the image is so realistic, or we call it representational. Then we look at something like this. Does this look like a real person? No, it's abstract, right? It's not a real person, but is it still a portrait? Yeah, because it's about a person. Exactly. It looks like a person still, even though it's not a realistic person. So we have abstract and realistic or representational. Very nice. All right, let's keep going. Let's get a couple more ideas. By the time I count to 3, please turn and face your partner. 1, 2, 3. What else? What's the same and what's different? Keep going.
Okay,
Good one.
Some are probably and some are made of metal and plastic and stuff. Some are about different things. Some are about different sketching. And they're like square. Some are like it looks like they're like that. Some are about twist like that.
10 more seconds. Nice talking. What else? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, I'm so happy that I had you go back and talk again because I heard so many great things. Different body shapes. You were saying they're doing different things with their bodies, and that has a really important name. It's called a gesture. Do you guys know that one? Gesture is what we do with our bodies. Right now, what's the gesture most of you are making? Your legs are crossed, your arms are down, right? We can do different gestures with our body. Oh, you went back and we're starting to talk a little bit about the facial expressions, what their faces are doing, which was absolutely excellent. You were also noticing all the different kinds. You said some are sketches, some are photographs, some are sculptures, some are paintings. Some of you were noticing that some of the portraits are on postal stamps and some are even on money. So all the different places, you're starting to get into that. So we notice a lot about our portraits and we're able to come up with a stronger definition. So after thinking about what we already knew and then what we found out after looking at all of these images, turn to face your partner one more time. You're going to tell them, what's your new definition of a portrait? Give me one sentence. What is a portrait? Go ahead and turn to your neighbor.
Portrait is like the imagination. Portrait. I would say like portrait is just putting art in your own words. So it's a picture, putting in your
10 seconds.
And when you see it, it's
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Please make me your focal point. Can you go ahead and just say out loud what you just told your friend?
A photograph is a picture, painting, or portrait of a person or object.
Does it have to have a person in it though?
No.
Do all of them have people on them?
No.
Look again. Look at all of them.
Yes. Wait, yeah, that's a person.
So even though it's a sculpture, is it still a person?
Yeah.
Yes.
It could be almost anything.
Can it be almost anything? What does it have to have? What does it have to have? Person, place, or thing? Does it have to have a person though?
Yes.
Raise your hand if you think it has to have a person. Turn and talk to your neighbor. Does it have to have a person? Look at all of our portraits. Does a portrait have to have a person?
It doesn't.
Which one does not have it?
Like what it is just so like it's a big I know, but like it can be designed. I mean, there can be people.
All right, come back to me. They all have to have what? People. It has to have people. Can it also have objects?
Yes.
Can it also have things and different places? But it has to have or a character, which we'll talk about in a moment, okay? A character, which can be an animal character. So what is a portrait? A portrait is, like my friend was saying, a work of art. It can be a photograph, a painting, a sculpture, about a person or people, right? That person in our portrait is called the sitter. So we can have more than one sitter in our portrait. Some portraits have many sitters and some just have one. So some of our portraits have characters like this. Now some of you were thinking that it could be animals, right? We can have animals in our portrait in order for that to work. So I want to look at the difference between animals here. What do you notice about the animals in this portrait, on this book? Yes. They have clothing on. They're acting like what? They're acting like people. The difference is, if we're looking at, see our eagle, our owl back here, where it says teacher time? Is that owl acting like a person? No. So we can consider an animal portrait if it's personified, if the animal is acting like a person. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. So is this a portrait? Yes, right? Is this a portrait? Yes, as a person, yeah. Is this a portrait? Yes. Is this a portrait? Is this a portrait? That's a person, right? What about on that poster? Is that a portrait? You've got it. All right, so let's keep going on to our next question. Where do we see portraits? Think in your own mind. Where do you see portraits? Think beyond the classroom. Think into your own life. Look at all of the portraits here. Where do we see them every day? When you think you have some ideas, remember we want more than one idea, cross your arms over your chest. Hold those ideas close to your heart. Remember, we're going to share them in a moment. Where do we see portraits? By the time I count to 3, turn and face your partner. 1, 2, 3. Where do you see them? Tell them all the places. Keep going. Where else? Where else?
You can see it on the
Where else? Ooh, yes, I'm still hearing more and more. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Make me your focal point. Wow, you found lots of different places where you can find portraits. Houses. How many of you have portraits of your family members in your house? Yep. Art galleries, school. Where do you see them in school? Everywhere, right? One of the places where you definitely see them are the library because they're all over our what? Books. Sometimes picture books and sometimes just on the cover of books. They're everywhere. Let's see. Cars. I know I've seen them on cars. Yes, sometimes there's pictures of people on cars or those big food trucks with pictures of people on them eating the big sandwiches. Photos on phones, like selfie mode, right? Or Facebook. Magazines all have portraits. In the art room and even on your TV, you're always seeing portraits. Did you have another idea that wasn't up here? Right, you can make yourself into a portrait by doing tableau, right? Exactly. Sometimes you even have portraits on your shirts, on your clothes. And let's see, anything else I missed? Stamps and money, which I know you found by looking at all the portraits we have in the circle. A drum might have a drum even has a, well, let's look at those animals. Are they personified? Are they acting like people? No. That's where it's tricky, right? If your animal is wearing clothing, going to school, yelling at their little sister, like Arthur always does, then it's a portrait, but it has to be personified. Can you say that word with me? Personified. Did you learn a little bit about personification? No. That's when things that are not people are acting like people or have different qualities of people. So you're going to learn more about that. Your third grade teacher will be really excited. You already know about personification. Very good. So we know what a portrait is. We know where we see them. Yes?
You can see them on the bottom of the picture. It says the American Art Museum.
Yes, the American Art Museum.
There are many museums all around. You have the Ringling Museum here in Sarasota. Many of the images that you see here today are from the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. So I wanted to I'm glad that you brought that up. So some of the images, let's see, the one with the little girl and the kites on it, that is actually, she is a children's book author and she's still drawing lots of images. Her name is Shadra Strickland, and she has lots of images all around. So portraits are being made every day by contemporary artists. And where is that really? Oh, here he is. This is Chuck Close. He's a very famous portrait artist. I want to tell you a little bit about him. Put your hands down for a second, then I'll let you share a couple more. I know you're excited. He has a disability where he forgets people's faces. And so he came up with a method to help him get better at recognizing people's faces. So he'll take a picture of someone and then he doesn't throw it up. He blows it up very big, really big, so he can see that image on the wall. And then he divides the face up into different sections, like a grid, and then paints each section abstractly. And that helps him remember the face. He once did this of a president of ours, Bill Clinton, a few years back, and that image is now hanging in the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. Pretty neat, huh? So people use artwork sometimes to overcome disabilities or challenges they have in their lives. Pretty neat. Did we have a couple more ideas of where we see them every day?
Circus.
The circus, you might see some portraits. And what else?
In magazines.
In magazines, we said that one. One more? On
Sometimes
there are people. So we will begin to notice portraits everywhere after this lesson. Let's put our hands down. We're going to move forward. So now that we know what a portrait is and where we can find them, we must know what to look for, what our eyes should notice anytime we're looking at a portrait so that we can start to gather information. Okay, I'll teach you these things. We're going to start with 6, and then maybe we'll add a few more on if we get going with it. All right, here we go. Very first thing that our eyes should notice, and you already brought this up, is our facial expression. The facial expression is our feeling, our mood, right? And we show it on our face. So show me the facial expression of being excited. Show me a facial expression just with your face being sad. Show me a facial expression for frustration. Show me a facial expression for worried. Show me a facial expression for angry. Show me a facial expression for peaceful. Ah, very nice. I always like to end with that one. Let's look at this young lady's facial expression. Who can describe her facial expression? Yes. What do you see that makes you say she's sad? Her lips are pouting. What else do you see that makes you say she's sad? What makes you think she's worried? What do you see that makes you say that?
Because her eyes and her lips.
Yeah, her eyes and her lips. She's got this thing called a furrowed brow. Can you try and do that? Where your brows kind of come together like that? Yeah, that's a furrowed brow. So we can describe her eyebrows, her eyes, and her mouth. Do you have one more idea? She might be hopeful. What do you see that makes you say she's hopeful just in her face? What on her face makes you think she's hopeful? Could be, right? So we can read into different emotions based on what we observe about her face. What about, can you hold up that picture right there? There you go. Okay, how can we describe his facial expression? Yes. How do you know he's happy? What do you see that makes you say that? Big smile. What do you see? His smile is so big you could see what? His teeth. What else makes you think he's happy? Look at his facial expression. But what about it makes you think he's happy? What is he doing with his eyebrows? Do you want to pass it on to a friend? It's okay. If you're stuck, you can call in a friend to help you. Just looking at his facial expression.
His eyes are
Yeah, can you describe that?
It's like his eyes are going like this because a lot of times when people are happy, they go like this when they smile.
What is like this? What can you describe what's happening to his eyes? What does he have alongside his eyes? He's kind of squinting. He's got little smile lines, little like wrinkles by his eyes, right? So we want to be able to describe with words what's happening to that person's face. Put your hands down. You're all going to get a chance to describe more and more. Very nice. So we have our facial expression. Can you do that with me? Facial expression. Everybody together. Facial expression. One more time. I'm waiting for all of us. This is our gesture we're going to do with it. We have our facial expression. Why do you think we go like this? Yeah, we're drawing a circle around our face so we notice the facial expression. Very nice. After that, we're going to look for the focal point. Focal point. Can you say it with me? Focal point. It's where the sitter is looking in the portrait. Where is the sitter looking in this portrait? What's his focal point?
In a book.
His focal point is in a book. So we point to our eyes and then out, right, at the object or the thing the person is looking at, the focal point. So let's do them together. Facial expression, focal point. Very nice. That third thing we're going to look at is the gesture. Can you do that with me? Gesture. The gesture is what we do with our body, so that's why we get our arm going with it. Gesture. All right. Without using any sound from your voice, can you copy this man's gesture? Just put it in your body. Your whole body. Come on, stand up. Your whole body. Very nice. Without using any sound from your voice, copy his gesture. That's right. His legs are stretched apart. His arms are stretched apart. Even his hands are stretched apart. His chest is puffed up. That's his gesture. I described everything about it, didn't I? His torso is stretched out. Perfect. All right. Hold on. Stay standing. Let's copy. Where did she go, my lady with the... Nope, that's okay. Where's the lady with the kites? You don't see her? Did I take her picture away? I did. Is it covered up by someone else? Oh, my goodness. I did take it away. It's right here. Copy her gesture without using any sounds. Very nice. Holding your pose. Who can tell me what's your gesture? What are her arms doing? What are her arms doing? Holding a kite. What are her legs doing? They're dangling, right? One toe holding on to a shoe. She's stretching her torso apart. So you want to be really descriptive about what she's doing with her body. All right, one more copycat. Ready? Show me this gesture in your own body. I'm losing my microphone. Show me this gesture in your own body. Wow, some of you are doing it perfectly. His right leg is crossed in front of his left leg. His right hand is supporting underneath the book. His right hand is turning the page. So notice how I'm observing and I'm describing in detail. That's his gesture. It's what he's doing with his body. Very nice. Let's try it from the top. Go ahead and relax your body. Release that gesture. We're going to do it with the words and the gestures together. Here we go. Starting with our facial expression, focal point, gesture. Nice. The next one is clothing. Can you do that? Clothing. So we're actually taking the sleeve of one side of our clothing, pick it up, and then the other side. Clothing. Okay? So we noticed when we were looking at all of the portraits that the clothing will tell us things about the person in the portrait, right? So let's check out, again, one of my favorite images to use again and again is this little boy. So if I'm describing his clothing, I'm not just going to say he's wearing jeans and a t-shirt. I want to be more descriptive than that. He's wearing a red, white, and blue short sleeve striped shirt, blue jeans, and white tennis shoes. Much more descriptive, right? Very much so. All right. And then this man that I was starting to look at before, what's he wearing? Tell me about his clothing. Who can describe his clothing? Yes.
White polo, black tie.
Look really closely. Dark.
Red tie.
Yeah.
White polo.
The collared shirt.
Collared shirt.
And then on the outside of that collared shirt, he's wearing a what? A lab coat. What do you see that makes you say it's a lab coat and not just a regular coat? What is it? Oh, so you're starting to think of the objects. But what's different about this coat than a coat that you would wear on a winter's day in North Dakota? What's different about this? Yes.
That coat has the like when your shirt goes up and it's
Collar.
Yeah, the collar, and it's the long like short long.
Got lungs. Yep. And then what do you notice right here in the coat? He has a pocket. So we're really describing the clothing to make sure, right, that it supports our thoughts, that it's a lab coat. Good job. We're just digging deeper by saying, what do you see that makes you say that, right? Going deeper and deeper. And I keep on wanting to hide those portraits. So we've got the clothing. Let's try all of those together. Are you ready? Hand by your forehead. You ready? Here we go. Facial expression, focal point, gesture, clothing. So far, we're talking all about the people, right? The people. Now, let's move on. We are going to look also at the setting. Can you try that with me? Setting. The setting is what? What do you know about the setting? Yes.
It's what the person has in the background.
It's the background, right? We go like this. We create a frame that touches the background, the setting. Very nice. And so let's take a look at one of these settings. Who can describe this setting here? Describe the setting, yes. He's in a big open field. How do you know it's a field? What do you see that makes you say that? Grass, lots of grass, and lots of sky, right? We know that he's in a field because of all of that. Go ahead and take 30 seconds with your partner and just compare and contrast the different settings you see all around the circle. Go ahead, turn and face them.
This guy's
See if you can keep the portraits on the floor, no touching. Flat on your bottoms. Flat on your bottoms so that everybody can see the settings, okay? Just look with your eyes. You got it. Just looking with your eyes. Brains are thinking. Eyes are looking. What's the same and what's different? Beautiful. 5, 4.
John, he's leaving for the day.
Okay. Thanks, John. Thank you, John. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Please make me your focal point. Awesome. So we have the setting. I'm going to put it in a different color so we see it's different from what we're looking at with the people. Now we have the place, right? What do you think's next? We have the people, we have the place, we have the, yes, objects. You know it. It's the things, right? The objects. The objects. All right. So those are the things in our portraits. What are the things in this portrait? What are the things? Kites, right? We have objects. What about the Time magazine one? What are the things? What are the objects there in Time? What do you see there? What is he holding? The footballs. Those are the things. Take 30 seconds with your neighbor and talk about the objects that you see in the portraits in front of you. What's the same and what's different? Yes. Oh, look closely. What do you see that makes you say that it's that? Could it be something else? Yes. 10 seconds. Try to stay flat on your bottoms. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And make me your focal point. Thank you so much. So objects, we take our hand, make it like a little glove. We take our other hand, make a fist like a little ball. We put the ball in the glove. And we say objects. We got to go from the top now, right? Facial expression, focal point, gesture, clothing, setting, objects. I think you've got it. We're going to go a little bit faster to make sure we really have it down, to make sure that you can all teach your teachers, okay? Here we go. Facial expression, focal point, gesture, clothing, setting, objects. A little bit faster now. Facial expression, focal point, gesture, clothing, setting, objects. Slow motion. Facial expression, focal point, gesture, clothing, setting, object. And faster. Facial expression, focal point, gesture, clothing, setting, objects. Can you do it without using any words, just the gesture? Wow, you guys are so good. Now that we know what is a portrait, we know where we find portraits every single day. We know what our eyes should notice anytime we look at a portrait. You're ready to put it all together and play a little game called Pass the Portrait. So in a moment, I'm going to choose a portrait for each pair that has all of these elements: facial expression, focal point, gestures, clothing, setting, and objects. Your job with your partner is to look and find all of these things and talk about them. It's like a treasure hunt, okay? So you'll look and you'll first say, what is her facial expression? You'll describe it to each other. Then you're gonna look at her focal point. Where is she looking? You'll describe that. Her gestures, her clothing. Then you're gonna describe the setting, and then what? The objects, right? So with your partner, take 30 seconds and decide where I can place that portrait so both of your eyes can see it clearly. When you find a place, point to it so I know where to put your portrait. Okay? Talk to each other. Where should I put that portrait? And then go ahead and point to it. Don't start talking about it yet. Just think about all of those things we came up with. Don't start talking about it yet. You're pointing, and you're going to begin thinking. Where are the facial expression, focal point, gesture? What's the clothing? Not yet, just thinking about it. I know, it's so tempting. Once you have that image of the three of you working together, perfect. And let's have you look at that. Being very specific about the images that I'm choosing to make sure there's enough for you to talk about. Okay, now listen. When you get that portrait, take 10 seconds to yourself. Notice facial expression, focal point, gesture, clothing, setting, objects. And now talk. Tell them everything you know, everything you notice. Take 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Please make me your focal point. That was a great first round. So listen, now we're going to start passing them. When your time is up, you're going to hear me do this. Pass the portrait. That portrait is going to be passed clockwise, which means your portrait will go to them, their portrait will go to them, and we'll keep going around this circle, okay? So let's try it. As soon as you get your new portrait, take 10 seconds. Notice all of these things on your own, and then you'll begin talking. Here we go. Pass the portrait. Take some time on your own just to think about it. And then begin speaking. 'What do you see that makes you say that? Nice. Indeed. Pass the portrait. This way. It goes really fast on purpose, right? So you have to get all of those ideas out. Take your time to describe it. Don't go too fast. Good balance. Pass the portrait.
Okay, can I go first?
What about his facial expression? Very good, detailed descriptions. Pass the portrait. Remember, if you think you've run out of things to say, what are you going to ask each other? What else? Very good. Forget about her facial expression. Take 10 more seconds with this portrait. Good, I hear what else?
Fields in the background with a house.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Please make me your focal point. Hold on to your portrait. We'll pass it in a moment. Wow. I heard some of you saying to each other, what else? What else? You know what else I heard? Some of you said, what do you see that makes you say that? And I loved hearing that. So someone might say, oh, I think she's Ruby Bridges. And somebody said, well, what do you see that makes you say that? How do you know, right? So that's really interesting, thinking about what are the things that you see that makes you think it's someone, right, that you might know from history. So we're going to go on and add these 3 different elements that we're going to look for, since you're getting so good at this. We're now going to look at our objects and say, how many, quantity, can you do that with me? Quantity, one more time, quantity. We're going to say, how big or how small is it? Size. So that's our gesture for size. And then color. Imagine that we had 2 paintbrushes and we're flicking the paint off of them. Color. One more time. Color. Let's try just these 3. Quantity, size, color. All right. Can we start all the way from the top and add those 3? Okay. Facial expression, focal point, gesture, clothing, setting, objects, quantity, size, color. All right, so the next thing, what time that you go to describe your image, I really want to hear about the quantity. How many of those objects do you notice? What's the size of them? And the colors. So for instance, rather than just saying, I see kites, I'm going to say, I see many, or I might even count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then there's a tail here, so there might even be 11. Like count them out. So this is my quantity. I see many. I'm going to think about the size. What size would you say they are?
Medium.
Medium. I see many medium size kites. And then I'm also going to think about the color. I see, so I could say multicolor, rainbow colored, right? Rainbow or colorful. Rainbow colored kites. And that's my sentence, right? That is descriptive. I see many medium rainbow kites. Isn't that better than just saying I see kites? That's kind of boring when I say I just see kites, right? Okay, so pass your portrait. Make sure you have a brand new portrait in front of you. Take a couple moments and to form that sentence. I see quantity, size, color. Go ahead, tell your neighbor.
Up there.
Pass the portrait. Oh, I love how you're thinking first. Very nice. And then go ahead and create that sentence. I see quantity, size, pass the portrait. Make sure you think first. Just take 10 seconds. It's okay, but you have to do the quantity, size, and color. You didn't do that before. Take 10 seconds. And then go ahead and share.
A car picture. Blue. I see the blue jeans.
10 seconds.
And it makes me think
5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Please make me your focal point. And the portrait can just remain right on the ground. You don't have to pass it. Thank you so much. Let's sit flat on our bottom. Take a deep breath. Very nice. I saw some of you already seeing what I was writing up here and going on to the next step. So normally I wouldn't go on to the next step with a group like this after doing so much work, because you already figured out what a portrait is today. Then you talked about where you notice portraits, and then you thought about what your eyes should notice and discover anytime you look at a portrait. So now you're going to begin to read portraits to find meaning, to learn something about the person that's in the portrait. That's called making inferences. When you take what you see or read, you combine it with your own knowledge, your own background knowledge, and then you come up with an idea. You draw a conclusion. You make an inference. So you're going to get to do that today. Really quickly, we're just going to touch it, just the tip of the iceberg, okay? So we're going to use a sentence like this. First, we're going to think. We're going to say, what's everything I notice about this portrait? What are all the things I notice about this portrait? What do I see about her facial expression? What do I notice in her clothing? What do I notice about this setting? Then I'm going to think in my own mind, what's really going on in this picture? What is the artist trying to show me? So I'm doing this all in my own brain. I'm not saying it out loud, okay? Then when I go to share with a friend, I'm going to use this sentence, when I see blank, and I'm going to tell them about something I see, it makes me think blank, okay? So there's a process there. First, I look, I observe. What do I notice? Facial expression, focal point, gesture, clothing, setting, object. I notice a little girl whose face looks worried. Her eyebrows are raised. She's looking down at the ground. I notice her her focal point is actually down, far away at the ground below her. I notice her clothing. She has a skirt on with a short sleeve shirt. I notice all of these tights going way up into the sky. Okay, and then I'm thinking to myself, well, what is the artist trying to tell me? Why did they choose to include so many tights? I've got it. When I see this young girl looking down at the ground with a worried look on her face, holding on to kites that are pulling her up in the air, it makes me think she might be lifted off the ground after just one day in the park playing with her kites. So I'm starting to think of inferences now. I'm starting to think what the story is, aren't I? So we can come up with 3 different sentences. We can say first, when I see, it makes me think. When I see, it makes me feel. When I see, it makes me wonder. Can you try that with me? When I see, it makes me think. When I see, it makes me feel. When I see, it makes me wonder. So now when you get your portrait, I want you to really take the time this time to look at the portrait and think on your own. What are all the things I notice? Facial expression, focal point, gesture, clothing, setting, objects, quantity, size, color. What is this portrait trying to show me? And then come up with just one sentence today. We're just going to start out. When I see, and then choose something from the painting you see, it makes me think. You're going to tell your partner what it makes you think. Does that make sense? Any questions before we get started? All right, let's pass the portrait. Make sure you have a new one. It's okay if you saw it already when you did your observations. We're going that way. All right, take 10 seconds. What do you notice in your own mind? No talking out. What do you notice in your own mind? Now take 10 seconds and think, what's the story? Don't say it out loud. What is the artist trying to show me? And now we're going to use this sentence. When I see blank, what is it that you see? It makes me think or feel or wonder. Go ahead and tell your partner. I see.
It makes me wonder that if she's like. It makes me think that everyone's more like staring at us.
What does it make you think?
Because at the when I see it right now, I know that
Interesting. You want to try another one? When I see.
very white creature. So why would he be out there? Because blood dealers makes me wonder. Healing there.
What else? What else? Try another one. Try another one. What else could the author, the illustrator be showing us? Pass the portrait. Let's try it with another one. Take 10 seconds first. Try not to talk. What do you notice? What do you observe? Then think in your own mind without talking. What is this artist trying to show me? What's the story? Then come up with that sentence in your own brain. When I see blank, it makes me think. Go ahead and tell your partner.
When I see
What do you see that makes you say that it can make you happy?
And then it makes me think
But her gesture and her face, you could tell that, right? Good. Make sure you tell her. 10 more seconds. What else? What else do you notice? So what does that make you think? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Flat on your bottoms. Make me your focal point. What awesome listeners. Scooch back just a little bit. Did anyone want to share one of their sentences that they came up with, one of their inferences? Someone I haven't really heard from today. I don't think I heard from you out loud with the group. Can you share? You want to use this one? Oh, which one? This one? So you're starting with when I see.
When I see her facial expression, it makes me think something has gone wrong, and she's sad.
When he sees her sad facial expression, it makes him think that something has gone wrong. And I would say, what else? What else do you see that makes you think that? Anyone else want to help him add on to it? Yes.
She's pouting.
When I see her pouting,
It makes me think like if she is sad. That's what I was going to say. And I also see when I see the picture, like other from the girl, I'm talking about
Yes.
the setting, like the brick wall on the side. It makes me think like, where is she?
makes you wonder, where is she? Good. It's starting to make you ask questions. Let's stick with this one. When you see.
When I see her that looks like she's about to cry, it makes me think someone in her family died.
Keep going. What else? Excellent. When I see.
When I see that she's sad and she's holding an American flag, and she's black, it makes me think she's in segregation.
Makes you think that she's in a time of segregation. So interesting. You were noticing the objects now, the American flag. What else could that make you think? When I see, it makes me think. Yes.
When I see that she's when I see her face, it makes me think that and wonder that she's in the pasture and she has all. It looks like she's kind of poor with all the stuff. It's just brick.
So you're looking at this setting. It looks like she doesn't have very much. There's not much in this setting. Yeah. Did you want to add something? What do you see that makes you say she might be praying? Tell me.
Because her hands are like something.
So you're talking about her what? Her gesture, what she's doing with her body. We'll take one more. I see.
When I see the American flag, it makes me think that she's Rudy Bridges.
that she might be Ruby Bridges. Interesting. One more.
When I see like she's sad, I think it might have been like when the black people were separated from the white people, and like one of the white people just like hurt her or something, or like made her feel bad, and she looks like really sad.
Could be, right? You're making an inference, and you're taking the evidence that you see from here, right? The American flag, the fact that she's African American and that she's sad, and then you're taking your knowledge that what you've studied, and it's making you make an inference. It's coming up with a really powerful thought that's rooted in evidence. Very nice. Go ahead and continue to sit straight up, nice and tall. Try not to fiddle with your shoes. We're going to close our lesson today. Today we learned what a portrait is, where we see portraits every day, what our eyes should notice when we look at portraits. Then we learn to make inferences, to make meaning of portraits based on evidence, all of the things we find in that portrait. When might it be useful to read portraits? When do you think it would be helpful to read portraits in life? When would you do this? Yes.
I think it might be helpful to read portraits when you like are in with your family at a museum.
Going to a museum, right? To come up with really cool stories about the images that you're seeing. When else might it be useful to read portraits? Why? Why would you need to do that at school? Why would you want to read a portrait in school, though? What would it help you do?
Well, it would help you learn.
About what?
Like, it will help you learn, like, since portraits are, you can read books, and books are, you can read portraits, so.
You could do both, right?
Yeah, it kind of helps you, like, compare books from a portrait.
To compare books from a portrait. Wow, so are you telling me that you can have a biography, which is a book about a person, and then you can have portraits about that same person, and then you can compare and contrast. Will that help your learning go even deeper? Who agrees with her? Interesting. Let's take two more thoughts. What else?
So about the portraits, so
Yeah.
I think it could mean a lot, like in this picture is she looks sad with his head down,
Mm-hmm.
and you can notice how he is sad because of the house right there, and it's dark.
Yeah, so you're making lots of meaning. You're coming up with a story about him. Could you imagine yourself writing a story about that guy? Could be a good idea, right? Could spark a story for you. Let's take one more.
I was thinking still at school because not only you can just read a book with words, you can take out the words and just look at the pictures and tell what they're actually saying.
Very interesting. Make lots of meaning. Like you do a picture walk, don't you?
Yeah.
Do you ever do a picture walk before you read a book? And then you're so excited to read the book to find out if you're right about all the things you were wondering? Oh, so cool. Put your hands down. Thank you so much. I'm going to talk to you all when we finish up our lesson today. I know you have lots of questions, and you can always write them down for me. Thank you so much for participating today and for opening up your classroom for all of these other wonderful teachers to come see what you're doing. And remember to come back to our mantra. What were those things that we came up with? I am happy. I am a listener. I am in control. I am focused. Let's whisper it.
I am happy. I am a listener. I am in control. I am
Focused. Just think it. You absolutely brought lots of joy to learning today, that happiness. You are definitely such a good listener and a talker, so important. And you were super focused and in control of your body, your voice, your imagination. I'm so impressed and thankful to spend time with you today, and I'll see you all soon. Let's make our focal point Miss Banks. Where is she? Can you find her? She's all the way in the back. Thank you, Miss Banks.